Hello and welcome back. And this is probably going to be weird. Also, I know I said I was going to film in different locations, but at the moment this is what we've got. If you watched any of the podcasts that I did from my house here in Florida, you'll notice that I am in a different room with a red background where there are two giant full-sized Egyptian statues behind me. That's my office. My office is currently a mess. So we're filming out here in the foyer, the front room, I don't know, the pseudo library, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I lied. For now, this is where we're gonna be. I also lied because I said that I wasn't going to just post videos about my own books, but if you saw the title of this video, you know that that is actually what we're talking about. So you shouldn't be surprised. You shouldn't be mad at me for lying to you. So let's get into the topic at hand. So at some point in the previous incarnation of this channel, which was probably a bit more focused than what you're getting right now, I talked about what it was like writing a book and things like that. I did like a part one of from concept to publishing and never did a part two. So think of this as like a pseudo part two to that video. With that said, I just wanted to discuss like what it was like writing a sequel and the things I didn't think about when writing a sequel. So what do I mean when I say the things I didn't think about when I wrote a sequel? I mean, obviously I knew I was going to write a sequel. There's going to be 9 books in the series. And so I knew I was writing a sequel. It didn't happen to me like it was a shock or a surprise. Like I knew I was going to write this. Like it wasn't out of nowhere. What I really mean when I say things that I didn't think about when writing a sequel was I just assumed because I had written the first one that I was just going to hit the ground running and write book 2 and it was going to be no problem at all. And that is not really at all what happened. It was a really long and arduous sort of mental journey to figure out what I wanted book 2 to be. I think one of the things that I really strive for was I wanted each book in the series to really be kind of its own thing. Like it's not its own story. There's an overarching plot line throughout all the books, but I wanted book 1 and book 2 to not feel the same. I wanted them to grow and be kind of distinctive in their own way and have their own kind of style and vibe and aesthetic to them. And I think if you look at the cover of book 2, it's more chaotic and splashy, and I think that's more representative of the kind of story that you get in book 2 versus book 1's very swirly but organized kind of cover, if that makes sense. What I'm saying is I really tried to take the feedback that I got from book 1, not only from my editor, but from readers, and really think about what I could do as an author to take it to heart, but not let it change the way I was writing. And another thing I really wanted to do was I incorporated a lot of things that influenced me from my childhood into book 1, both movies, music, TV shows, and other books that like I had grown up with that really influenced me as a creative writer and an artist. And I wanted to do the same in book 2, but I didn't want it to be the same influences. So book 2 is definitely different, I think, not only in its aesthetic, in its cover, but also in its aesthetic as a written text. It is faster and punchier and a lot wilder, and I think that was a lot easier to do than in book 1. In book 1, I had to really lay a lot of groundwork and set up the world and the characters, and in book 2 I just jumped into believing that you had just read book 1, so we're not going to really waste a lot of time rehashing anything that came up in that story. All of that being said, that sounds like what I wanted to talk to you about, like, oh, these are things that I thought about, but what I really wanted to talk about, the meat and potatoes. Oh, it's been a long day, I can't talk. So the meat and potatoes of what I really wanted to get into was things that you don't necessarily think are gonna happen when you go into a sequel. You think, I've got this world, I've got these characters, and everything's gonna be really smooth sailing, and I can just get going once I have nailed down my plot. But that really wasn't the way it went for me. And I think it's really important as an author that people talk about the hard part of the craft. And it sounds like really silly because it's writing. It shouldn't be hard, and people should just assume that you sit down at your computer and you just like, oh, smashed out this book, hey, ready to go, move on. But there's so much that goes into it, and it is an art you know, it's like a painting or a film. You put a lot of yourself into it, and it's really hard. And despite all the positive feedback that you can get, you kind of hone into that 1% that's bad feedback. And somebody says, oh, I didn't like this about the book, and then that's all you think about, and you just really focus on, okay, well, I don't want to do this in book 2. I want book 2 to be better. I don't want anybody to say anything bad about book 2. And the problem with that is that's not realistic. Not everybody's gonna like what you do, and that's really hard, but it's part and parcel of going into a creative field, you know. Not everything is for everybody, and you just have to learn that that is okay. So I think one of the big things that I really wanted to touch on in this video for anybody who wants to be an author, is an author, and you're writing another book, or you're an aspiring young writer, I think one of the things you have to really come to terms with is sometimes, or a lot of times, you're gonna sit down and you're gonna feel like you are absolutely terrible at this job, and you're only focusing on the bad things that people have said, and you're so focused on that it bogs you down, and you're not writing like you, and everything you write is just, it's trash, and it's reading terrible, and you know in your heart that you're like, this isn't the best work you've ever done, and you have got to get past that. So one of the things I probably listed at least like 5 things I didn't know or think about. One of the things that I really wanted to say was things that I hadn't thought about was that your characters, they gotta grow. And so they're picking up from the end of book 1, and you gotta make them grow, and that's where you kind of get this crux of like, you know what you want them to do and who you want them to be, and you just really have to get over the criticism of what other people want from your work, and you have to really doggedly dig in and say like, nope, this is what I'm doing, this is my vision, it's my work, and here's what I have imagined for these characters, and I am going to stick to it. And you have to be okay with sticking to your guns and saying like, this is what I imagined for my story. And people, you know, like I said before, people are either gonna hate it or they're gonna love it, and you really have to be okay with both. So I've probably really misled you with things I didn't know about writing a sequel, because this is more of like experiences and feelings I had while writing the sequel that I wasn't expecting. I was not expecting to suffer from horrible imposter syndrome and just keep telling myself that I was really bad at my job, because I don't think that's true. I feel this is my passion, and I think I'm okay at it, and I've got pretty good reviews on book 1, and I really believe in my story and my characters. But I guess everything I'm trying to say is you have to get to that point, and it's not always hard, and it's not always immediate. So when you sit down to write a sequel, I don't know why I'm laughing, it's nervous laughter. So when you sit down to write the sequel, you have to have a really firm belief of your characters, your story, your setting, and what you're doing, and look past look past yourself. Don't get bogged down in your own head. Believe in what you're doing, and keep writing, and you're gonna put on the page what you want to put on the page, and nobody's gonna stop you. And if you want to see what happened in my sequel, you can pick up Phineas Fogg, Blood in the Water. It's book 2 out of 9. Book 1 came out in 2021. Book 2 has just come out July of this year, 2023. I'll put links in the bottom description thingy. And thank you to everybody who has bothered to watch this video. I know it was unintentionally a emotional roller coaster on my part of realizing that I had a lot of feelings when writing book 2, but I'm really proud of it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of Finn's journey.